Welcome back to Taka Tales, where we bring you the most chilling horror stories, terrifying encounters, and unsettling mysteries from around the world.
I took the job because I needed to disappear. No people, no noise, no city, just trees and silence. The listing was buried on an old state forestry website. One blurry photo, one short description. Remote fire lookout position, overnight shifts, minimal human interaction. That should have sounded strange. Instead, it sounded perfect. What I didn't know was that something else already lived out there. And before my first night was over, it knew exactly where I was. 3 weeks earlier, my life had completely fallen apart. Not all at once, slowly. The kind of collapse that sneaks up on you. I lost my apartment first, then my job. Then my girlfriend finally got tired of watching me. Promised things would get better. By the time she left, I barely argued. I think part of me already knew she was right. So when I saw the fire lookout listing, it felt less like finding a job and more like escaping. The pay was terrible. The tower was deep in the mountains. No internet. Almost no contact with anyone. Perfect. A week later, I packed everything I owned into the back of my car and started driving north. The farther I went, the emptier the roads became. Gas stations disappeared. Phone signal vanished. Even the radio stopped working. The GPS froze about an hour before I reached the forest road. After that, there were only trees, miles and miles of trees. The dirt road climbed higher into the mountains, twisting around cliffs and disappearing into fog. At one point, I seriously considered turning around, but then I saw the tower. It stood above the forest like a giant wooden skeleton, tall, crooked, old. The kind of structure that looked like it should not still be standing. And for some reason, the second I saw it, I got this horrible feeling in my stomach, like I had already made a mistake. A Forest Service truck was parked near the tower. The ranger waiting beside it looked about 60 years old, thin face, gray beard, tired eyes. He barely spoke while helping unload supplies, canned food, water containers, emergency batteries. Finally, he handed me a ring of keys. "Radio's upstairs," he said, "checking every hour." I nodded. Then he looked toward the trees, not casually, carefully, like he was listening for something. That was when he added, "And don't go into the woods at night." I laughed a little, mostly because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. The silence after that felt strange. I remember trying to recover the moment. "Bears?" I asked. The ranger stared at me for a second too long. Then he said, "Something like that." And that was it. No explanation, no warning. He climbed into his truck and drove away, leaving me completely alone on the mountain. I watched the truck disappear down the dirt road until I couldn't hear it anymore. Then everything became quiet, too quiet. At first, the isolation actually felt peaceful. The tower overlooked endless forests and distant mountains. The wind moved through the trees in slow waves. As the sun started setting, the sky turned orange and gold across the horizon. For the first time in months, I felt calm. The tower itself was small. One room, a desk, a cot, old binoculars, a radio. Most of the windows were scratched from age. The wooden floor creaked every time I moved, but it worked. That night, I made coffee, unpacked my bag, and tried settling in. Every hour, I checked in on the radio like the ranger instructed. The conversations were short. Tower 4 checking in. Copy that. Nothing unusual. But around midnight, the feeling changed. The forest no longer felt peaceful. It felt awake. The silence became heavy, like the woods were listening. I kept noticing myself staring out the windows, not because I saw something, because I felt like something was about to appear. Then it happened. Crack, a branch snapped somewhere below the tower. I froze, another crack followed. Closer. I grabbed the binoculars and scanned the darkness between the trees. Nothing, just shadows. Wind. Movement in the branches. I lowered the binoculars. Then I saw it. Something moving between the trees. Fast. Too fast to track clearly. My stomach tightened immediately. Probably a deer, I thought. Had to be. Then the radio crackled. "You seeing anything down there?" The ranger's voice sounded different now, more serious. I hesitated. Maybe an animal. Static filled the speaker. Then, don't track it if it moves again. I frowned. What? Stay inside the tower. The radio went silent. I sat there staring at it. That warning made no sense. Why would I need to stay inside because of an animal? That was the moment I realized something was wrong. About 20 minutes later, something slammed into the bottom of the tower. The entire structure shook violently. I nearly dropped the flashlight. Another hit came seconds later. Bang! Dust fell from the ceiling. My heart started pounding. Then came the footsteps, slow, heavy, circling the base of the tower. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I stopped breathing. The sound was deliberate, not random, not animal movement. It sounded like someone walking in circles directly beneath me. I grabbed the flashlight and moved toward the window. The beam shook in my hands. At first I saw nothing, then the light caught movement near the trees. A figure, tall, standing completely still, too tall. Its arms hung strangely low beside its body. And even from that distance, I could tell it was staring directly at the tower, at me. Every instinct in my body screamed to back away from the window, but I couldn't move. The thing tilted its head slowly, then it stepped forward. And suddenly, it was much closer than before. I don't mean it walked closer. I mean 1 second it was near the trees, and the next it was halfway to the tower. My brain could not process what I was seeing. Then the radio exploded with static. I jumped so hard I nearly fell backward. The ranger's voice pushed through the noise. Do not let it see you watching it. My mouth went dry. What is that thing? No answer. Just static. Then the voice came back. Quiet this time. Almost was nervous. Turn the lights off. I shut the flashlight off immediately. Darkness swallowed the tower. Outside, the footsteps stopped. For 1 horrible second, everything was silent. Then I heard breathing, directly beneath the tower. I backed away from the window slowly. Every board under my feet creaked. The breathing below me stopped instantly, like it heard the sound. Then came a voice, soft, weak, almost human. Hello? I froze. The voice came from outside the tower, near the ladder. Can you help me? The words sounded wrong somehow, like someone trying to imitate human speech. Too careful, too slow, I moved toward the radio. Someone's out there, I whispered. The ranger answered immediately. Do not answer it. The voice outside spoke again. I think I'm hurt. The hairs on my arms stood up. Something about the voice felt unnatural, like every sentence was copied from memory. Then it changed, slightly. The tone became more emotional, more convincing. Please, I don't know why, but suddenly I imagined a lost hiker outside in the dark, cold, bleeding, alone. That thought hit me so hard I almost stepped toward the door. Then the ranger shouted through the radio. It is not a person. The voice outside stopped immediately. Silence, then a soft metallic sound. Clang, my blood turned cold. The ladder. Something had grabbed the ladder. Then came another sound. Clang, clang, clang. It was climbing slowly, deliberately, coming toward me. I stumbled backward across the tower. The ladder groaned beneath the creature's weight. Every metal clang sounded closer. The ranger kept talking through the radio, but I barely heard him. My entire focus locked onto the trapdoor entrance in the floor. Another clang, then another. It stopped halfway up, completely silent. I waited. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. Then the voice returned, but this time, it sounded exactly like me. Hey, open the door. My stomach dropped instantly. It was my voice, perfectly copied. Every detail, every tone. I backed into the corner of the tower, shaking so badly I could barely stand. Then my voice came again from beneath the floor. You're overreacting. I covered my mouth. Tears started forming in my eyes without me realizing. Because somehow, hearing my own voice outside that door felt worse than hearing a monster. The ranger finally shouted through the radio. Do not respond to it. Do not let it keep hearing you. Then everything clicked together. The thing was learning, copying, adapting. That was why the ranger warned me not to watch it. Why he told me not to speak. The thing listened, and the longer it listened, the better it became. For the next hour, the thing stayed on the ladder. Sometimes it spoke. Sometimes it stayed completely silent. But every few minutes, it scratched the underside of the trapdoor. Slowly, like it was testing the wood. At one point, it whispered my exact breathing pattern back to me. That almost broke me. The tower felt smaller every minute. The darkness felt alive. I kept imagining the trapdoor suddenly exploding open. Then around 3 in the morning, the scratching stopped. I waited. Nothing happened. 5 minutes passed, 10. Then came footsteps again, descending the ladder, slowly. The sounds faded into the darkness below, but I still didn't move. I stayed frozen in the corner until sunrise. The first light finally crept through the windows around 6:30. The forest looked normal again. Birds chirped. Wind moved through the trees. Everything looked peaceful, like the night before never happened. Then I looked down at the ladder. Deep scratches covered the metal, long, thin, not human. A truck engine echoed in the distance. The ranger had returned. I nearly ran down the stairs to meet him. The second he saw my face, he knew. "You saw it," he said quietly. I nodded. "What is that thing?" The ranger looked toward the trees again. Same careful look from before. Then he said something I will never forget. "It doesn't like being watched." That was all he gave me. No explanation, no story, nothing. I packed my things immediately. The ranger didn't try stopping me. Honestly, he looked relieved I was leaving alive. As I drove down the mountain road, I kept checking the mirrors. Every shadow between the trees looked wrong. Every movement made my heart race. Eventually, my phone regained signal, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I escaped. But that feeling didn't last, because sometimes, late at night, when everything becomes quiet, I still feel it. That same heavy silence. That same feeling that something is standing just outside the room. Listening, learning, waiting, and every now and then, I catch myself avoiding windows after dark. Because, deep down, part of me still believes it followed me out of those woods.